Thank you for inviting me to come and speak to you today and go over some things about Grants.gov in case it's new to you, or in many cases, you may already be familiar with Grants.gov. At any rate, let me get started by providing, this is geared towards applicants, and this is geared towards applicants that are typically organizations, because most of the federal grants that are posted on Grants.gov are for organizations. There are some that are posted for individuals, but the majority are for organizations. So some of the topics I'm going to talk about are how to navigate Grants.gov if it's your first time, the registration process, what you're required to do as an applicant to register to submit an application and to receive an award, how to search the Grants.gov website, what's actually in a grant funding opportunity, using what we call Workspace to prepare and submit your application, the importance of tracking your application to see it through its entire validation process so that you know for sure that the agency for which you are applying for funding has retrieved your application from the Grants.gov site. And at the very end, I'll provide some tips and some support resources in addition to providing this presentation to the staff here that are hosting the webinar in the form of a PDF file, and all this information will be available to you. So if you missed something, please put it in the Q&A. We'll get to it at the end. Also, it's a lot of detail, a lot of information for people that are new for grants at Grants.gov, using Grants.gov, that is, and for the federal grant awarding process in general. So let's start with navigating the Grants.gov website. So if you were to go to the home page, this is sort of what it would look like. The two tabs you'd be most interested in, there's a lot of content there, but the two tabs you'd be mostly interested in are the Search Grants tab and the Applicants tab. Like I just said a few minutes ago, we have lots of resources on our website, and they're available to you 24/7. We have YouTube videos that have been created as small 2 to 3 minute snippets of every function that an applicant may have a question about. So people find those very helpful. We have an online user guide for applicants, and we have FAQs and more. In addition, we have a help desk that is currently available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Several years ago, we set up a space on our website called Learn Grants. And here is where you can go if you're not familiar or you've forgotten something with respect to the federal grants life cycle. You can go here and learn about it. There's an introduction. It's kind of an introduction like a Grants 101 that you can download and take a look at. There's information about grant policies and how federal agencies create those policies, where they actually come from, grant terminology, and so forth. You can also sign up to receive a custom email notification for any grant funding opportunity that you may be interested in following or wanting to be notified if there's any change to the opportunity. And for example, a change may be the agency decides they want to extend the deadline. You'll get an email notification of that modification to the opportunity. And so that's just one example. A lot of folks like to sign up for the subscriptions. So what I was saying earlier, with respect to this presentation, the registration process is geared towards organizations for the most part. So if you haven't already done so, you're going to want to register for a SAM account. This is the System for Award Management. And here is where you would go to register your organization. Once you've completed the SAM.gov registration, you will receive a UEI number. This is a unique entity identifier number. It's taken the place of what we used to call the DUNS number. and it's now generated by SAM.gov. SAM.gov and Grants.gov are separate systems, just to make that clear up front. So you go to SAM to register. Once your account is active, you can submit an application. You can create and submit an application in Grants.gov. And if you are awarded funding from the agency for which you are applying for, you must have an active SAM account in order to receive funds. So another thing that the SAM.gov provides you once you have an active account is, in addition to the UEI number identifier, you will receive, this will be actually establishing the business point of contact at your organization. And in Grants.gov, we refer to that person as the EBiz POC. This is the person in Grants.gov that oversees all the activities for your organization in Grants.gov with respect to assigning roles to those in your organization that represent you. You should receive an active SAM account after all the validations are complete. We used to say approximately 7 to 10 days. This is business days. However, I do know that SAM.gov is running a little bit behind schedule. So in order to get information about SAM.gov, you can click on the link that we have on this slide, which again, you'll receive. So once your account becomes active, all of your organization data, such as your UEI, your e-business point of contact, email address, and some other information are electronically transferred in what we call an extract file on a nightly basis to Grants.gov. This happens every night. So if you go into SAM.gov, so say you have an active account now, or you're reactivating an old account that's been disabled or whatever, or deactivated, so to speak, you once that account becomes active, we receive that information from SAM.gov into Grants.gov, which allows you at that point to do what you need to do in Grants.gov to create and submit your application. Also, please note, if you are the e-business point of contact, that means your information's in SAM.gov and you are required to renew your account on an annual basis. If you let the SAM.gov account lapse, you can reactivate your account, but it takes a little while to do so. So make sure that if you're in charge of the business operations and it's your name in SAM.gov, you go in and renew that account on an annual basis before it becomes deactivated. Otherwise, you won't be able to create or submit an application, and you definitely won't be able to receive rewards without an active SAM account. And SAM.gov, mainly its role is to identify you and to basically guarantee that you are who you say you are. So it's a government check system, basically. So if you haven't already done so, we encourage you to set up a Grants.gov account. You don't have to have an active account to do so, but it does give you access to receive our notifications. If, for instance, we're going to have a system outage, or if you want access to our blog, or if you want access to receive our newsletter, you can create an account and you'll have that information emailed to you. The web page that you see in front of you is basically just where you fill out your information, you set up your username and your password, and subscribe to receive the alerts and newsletters and such. So there's 3 primary roles overall in Grants.gov. You have the eBiz point of contact that we get from SAM.gov. That person, again, is responsible for assigning all the roles to all the people that they affiliate to the organization within Grants.gov. Those 2 roles are primarily the Authorized Organization Representative, or AOR as we refer to them, as well as the Workspace Manager role. And I'll get into Workspace as we move forward in the presentation. So if you just want to play around on Grants.gov, you don't have to have an account at all. You can go and look under Learn Grants and learn as much as you choose to. You can look at videos. You can look at applicant help and so forth. You can also search for grant funding opportunities. So if you clicked on the search tab, it's going to take you into a list of funding opportunities. And up on the top left-hand side is where you would put in your search criteria. You can enter either a keyword or words, a funding opportunity number itself, if you happen to know that, or another identifier, which we refer to as the CFDA assistance listing number that agencies use in conjunction with SAM.gov when they list their assistance listings on their site. And that could be for things that aren't posted on Grants.gov. However, when an agency does post an announcement, they will post a CFDA. So if you know that number, you can search that way. You can also clarify your search or narrow it some. The default setting for a search is for forecasted funding opportunities or posted opportunities. You can also select the closed opportunities or the archived opportunities. If you continue through the left navigation, you'll be able to select a funding instrument type, such as a grant or cooperative agreement. You can also search through to see the eligibility criteria that you want to search on. And if you keep scrolling down, you'll see a section where you can actually select a category of funding that can identify some of the funding that you may be looking for, as well as you can select by agency or sub-agency. When I say agency, I really mean department, like the Department of Health and Human Services or the Department of Commerce or the Department of Education. You can search by those departments and then their agencies within them. They have, different sub-agencies. Like, for instance, HHS has the FDA, they have the CDC, they have the NIH, and several other agencies. So what's in an opportunity? So if you were to click on a funding opportunity, you would either come to a forecast, which we talked about, which is basically an estimate of what the agency plans to open or post in the future. It would be an estimate date that they plan to open the opportunity, an estimated program amount that they plan to fund all their awards with, and also an estimated award date. So this can give you an idea of what's coming, even though it's not available to you to apply for. Many agencies will post a forecast. Again, it's a plan. And then next to that, once the opportunity is made available to the public, it's actually what we call posted, you'll see the synopsis tab if you click on the opportunity. This is a lot of the same information that would be in a forecast. It provides the open date and the close date, the program funding amount that they're estimating they will be awarding, the estimated number of awards, and so forth. If you were to scroll down throughout that synopsis, you would find a description of the program, as well as links to related documents, as well as contact information for the particular funding agency. So if you clicked on the version history tab, which is to the right of the synopsis tab, this basically what you see in front of you is the entire opportunity itself with the various tabs. So we talked about synopsis, now we're talking about version history. So if there's if you click on this and it just says synopsis 1, that means that you're in the current opportunity. But if you see a second synopsis, that means that there was one posted before and there may be modifications made to that opportunity. So you may want to check out to see what those modifications were. To the right of the version history is where we have the related documents tab. And this is often where agencies, though they're not required, they will often post what we call the full announcement and other additional supporting documentation. The full announcement is basically the same thing as the instructions. So it's to you as an applicant, and it provides information about what the agency is requiring in your application. And lastly, to the far right is the package tab. This gives you a preview of what forms you'll be required to fill out, as well as the second set of instructions. If you are going to create what we call a workspace, which I'll get into in a minute, you would click on the apply button, and that would allow you, if you have the workspace role or AOR role, allow you to create the workspace. So what is Workspace? So basically, Workspace is just an area on our website that you have access to that you can share with other people, either within your organization or others outside of your organization. However, they must have a Grants.gov account. So if you create the workspace, you're considered a workspace owner. Again, you can add the participants, and then you can all work together simultaneously to complete the application. Once it's complete, you submit when you're done. And that becomes your entire submission, application submission. Again, it's a shared online environment. And this is basically what it looks like. So this is in the creation stage. And the agency has decided that they're filling out the optional form, which is a budget form, I guess, or it's the financial management system, internal control questionnaire, whatever. So they're in the progress of filling out that form. If the, under the requirements list, it's going to tell you whether the form is mandatory or optional. You must fill out all mandatory forms that the agency has deemed mandatory, as well as the mandatory fields within that form, or your agency will, your application can't be submitted. These are just a little more details about how you fill in the workspace forms and such. But we have all kinds of information on our website. You get stuck, you can look at our videos. You can refer back to this presentation. You can pick up the phone and call our 800 number toll free and talk with an agent there. They can help you through the process, as well as email them. So this is just a screen capture of a web form. So you can fill out the application within your workspace. Let me go back to, in two different ways. So you can fill out the web form itself directly, which I'll show you in a minute what they look like, or you can download the application in the form of a PDF and fill it out offline. And we set that, we kept that functionality because there are places still within the US where people don't have a reliable internet connection. If that is your case, you can download the application, work on it offline, and upload it when you're finished with it. And that's how it gets into the workspace. You can fill out a combination of both the web forms and the PDF forms if you so choose. So this is, what the web form would look like. The red asterisk is a notification to you that it's a required field and it has to be filled out. These are just more of the web forms. Several of the required forms are what we call SF 424 forms. And they require that you upload attachments. And that's just what this is telling you here. So The Workspace auto-saves every 5 minutes. So if you get up and you go make yourself a cup of coffee and you don't make it back in 5 minutes, that data that you entered will be saved. We also tell applicants that it's a good idea to fill out the mandatory form. It's the first form that you come to when you open the Workspace, and it will always begin with the letter SF, and then there'll be a 424 next to it. And we tell you to fill those out first because they pre-populate many of the form fields that follow. So that will save you some time. When you've completed all the web forms, or the PDF, or well, the web forms, we're talking about web forms here, you want to check for errors and make sure that you've filled everything out. And if there are no errors, you save it and then you can close it until you're ready to submit. So again, we talked about the PDF forms. You can download a PDF form to complete offline. We highly recommend that you use the Adobe Reader software. It's free and it works best with our forms because the forms are developed in Adobe. You can upload the PDF to your Workspace and you can share both versions of the forms, as I said earlier. You can use a web form for one form within the Workspace, and you can use a PDF from another form within the Workspace. It will all be combined together into one application submission. So the PDF forms look a little different. They're like the old paper forms where every field that you see highlighted in yellow is a required field. You can hover over the fields for help, and it helps you just work through filling out all the forms. Another good thing about Workspace is you can reuse forms that you've already submitted. So for instance, if you've submitted an application 2 weeks ago, but none of that information has changed, and you create a new Workspace, you can reuse that same form that you've created. That also saves time. You can also reuse an entire Workspace if you chose to. So you can create a Workspace and then reuse that Workspace if it's the exact same information for more than one opportunity. It's really important that you track your application submission to make sure that the agency does receive it. So if you're the applicant, the AOR is always the applicant. Once you hit submit, you'll receive on your screen a confirmation page that will provide you two really important pieces of information. You'll receive a Grants.gov tracking number, and you'll receive the official date and time stamp of your submission. You'll also receive this email in the form of you'll also receive this confirmation in the form of an email. Again, all this goes to the AOR, or applicant that's submitting the application. You as AOR or applicant will receive the confirmation email first, then you'll receive another email and it's validation. It'll say, we've received your application, it's been successfully validated, or it was rejected and here's why. And lastly, the third and very important email that you'll receive is your application has been retrieved by the agency. So you're done at this point, until the agency reviews it and so forth. You'll receive at least 3 of these emails, again, you as the AOR. You want to, again, like I said, track it. You could track it through your Workspace to see it through its submission. In this case, it was submitted. You can also, after you've submitted, download the entire zip file, or you can download the full PDF of what you submitted so you can actually see what the application is going to look like when the agency retrieves it. So if there's something you've forgotten, and hopefully you've given yourself enough time to create the application, and if there's something there that you forgot to do, you can resubmit the application. Not that particular application, but you can reopen the Workspace, fix whatever needs to be fixed, and resubmit the application. So several years ago, we set up a mobile app, and a lot of folks use it. You can search on the go. You can add and save your search queries if you have a Grants.gov account. You can receive notifications through the app. People have actually completed and submitted their application on the app. And you can download the app either via Google Play or Apple App Store. And I told you earlier, we're going to talk about some of the tips for applicants. So I cannot stress how important it is to register. If you just think that your organization is going to want to submit an application anytime soon, register in SAM.gov so you have an active account, because you can't really do much unless you have an active account. That's the only way that we get your identifying information, your UEI and your EBiz point of contact information. Obviously, you want to thoroughly read and follow all the instructions that have been provided by the federal agency. If you have questions about Grants.gov and how it works, and if you get stuck somewhere using the site, you can reach out to our help desk. But for programmatic questions, you're going to want to reach out directly to the agency that you are applying with for the funding. Like I said, filling out the SF-424 form first helps pre-populate and saves time, all the forms following. Obviously, you want to include sufficient program and budget details, and all that should be provided by the agency. They're going to tell you what they want from you, and what they're going to provide the forms that they need you to fill out. This is a general rule we tell people just as a reminder, and it's true with many systems. You want to make sure that when you create an attachment that needs to be uploaded into one of the forms, you're going to want to be careful naming that attachment file. You don't want to go over 50 characters, and you want to make sure that you don't use any special characters. And for a list of those, you could look on the web, you could Google UTF-8 characters, but there's a long, long list. So just be careful what kind of special character you may use in creating your attachment file names. And again, it's really important that you use the PDF Adobe Reader software. It is free and it will work the best with all of our forms, particularly if you're downloading them and filling them out and then uploading them. And here's all of our contact information. We have our contact center, our help desk. We have a Twitter account. We have lots of YouTube videos for applicants. You can subscribe to read our blog. We have the mobile app, and we also provide email newsletters and alerts to those that have Grants.gov accounts. And I think that's pretty much it for my overview, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you have. Sorry for all the detail, but there's lots of information and it is available to you on the website and through our help desk.
We have one question from Martha. She stated, if application is rejected, will feedback be provided? And will we have an opportunity to resubmit with corrections?
Yes. Yeah. If you can't actually submit an application unless you go through all the validations. So it's unlikely that many applications that come through Workspace are rejected. But if you do happen to submit an application and it is rejected, it will tell you what that error is so that you can go back, correct it, and resubmit. Now, as far as the agency rejecting your application, that's a whole different process, and that's not part of Grants.gov. We're only part of the pre-award process in the federal grants life cycle.
Got it. Jody has a question, and she stated, how long does your organization need to be established to apply?
It just depends on the program that you're applying for. So, as far as who is eligible, that would be provided by the agency itself within the funding opportunity, or you can reach out to them specifically. I mean, it just depends on the program. It depends on the policy or the regulations that were used to create the program.
Do we have any more questions? Anyone? We have another question. Can you go over the roles from EBiz, POC, AOR, and a Workspace once more to clarify
Sure.
each role in Grants.gov?
Absolutely. And again, all this is on our website too. So we go into great detail on the website. We have YouTube videos and so forth. So that's also very helpful. Let me go back to, here we go. Okay, so again, roles. Here we go. So the e-business point of contact, again, is the electronic business point of contact. We just shortened it and called it eBiz. You have to have a SAM account, and it has to have been active at some point for us to have your information from SAM. That would include your UEI and your EBiz POC. We get the email address. There's a couple of other things that we pull into Grants.gov too. But the most important is your UEI and your EBiz, because your EBiz, the only thing that an EBiz POC does in Grants.gov is assign roles to people within their organizations. And they also are responsible for renewing the account annually in SAM.gov. The EBiz POC can change, and they often do. So it's important that your organization keep up your SAM.gov record with the correct person that serves as EBiz POC. The AOR, or Applicant Organization Representative, is a role that allows you to create a workspace and submit a workspace. In some cases, there's only one person or two people in a small organization. So if there's one person, I know of small organizations where that person has an account, an EBiz account, as well as an applicant account or workspace manager account. And in big organizations like universities or just larger organizations, they'll have one EBiz because it's one organization, but they could have many people assigned or affiliated with the organization, and they may have AOR roles. They may just be a participant, so they would have what we call a participant role, but the primary is you have to have an AOR. And you have to be able to set up a workspace. In some cases, your EBiz may just assign someone that works for your program just a workspace manager role. So it just depends on the size of your organization as to how many AORs and workspace managers you're going to need. Or again, if you can invite someone, if you set up the workspace, you can invite someone into the workspace that's just a participant that just has a Grants.gov account, but no real roles. They can't really do anything other than they have access to the forms and they can fill those forms out. But they can't submit and they can't create a workspace. There's nothing else they can do. So I hope that helps. We have on our website, we have some very detailed information about those roles. If you want to know more, we had a lot of feedback from certain groups that thought that the workspace would work best if the organization could control everyone's roles. And so there's some roles called expanded AOR, and they can do just about everything. And I think there's even functionality that allows you to, well, you can lock the form. So say if I'm the budget person and I'm just added in as a participant, I can get a hold of the budget form and lock it, fill it out and keep it locked so nobody else can go in, and until the applicant or AOR is ready to submit. So it's a matter of just collaborating with people. Instead of sending application forms back and forth through email and then, getting too many at once and you're not sure which is supposed to go into the application, what's not. This allows you to all work together in one space.
Judy, we have at least 4 more questions that I hope that we can get to. Do you want to read them, Monica?
Sure. The next question is, are there any federal opportunities that do not use Grants.gov?
In some cases there are. I think that there are. So when applicants have already gotten an award, and it's a 3-year award, for instance, it's what we call a non-competing, or it's a continuation award, they don't have to use Grants.gov to submit that unless the agency wants you to. You'll find the larger agencies are much more automated, the ones that fund the most federal grants. So they're going to basically take that application in another way. But there are some small ones that do want you to go in and just fill out a couple of forms, and they'll explain all of that to you. But there are I'm sure DOD has some, NSA, some places where they don't want that information, it's top secret or whatever, it's a security risk, they wouldn't post that opportunity on Grants.gov. Grants.gov is used primarily, they call it, for all the discretionary grant funding opportunities. It was set up so that people can go to one place and find these discretionary opportunities. So not everything is on Grants.gov. There's mandatory grants that don't compete. These are primarily competitive grants.
Okay. We have another question. How early can we reactivate the SAM account before it expires?
As early as you want. I don't think there's any rule there that prevents you from renewing at 6 months or whenever. And the EBiz should get lots of reminders from SAM.gov. Again, it's not our system, so I don't know all the specific rules, but you should not have a problem renewing it anytime. And it's a good idea to keep that somewhere in your calendar so you don't forget, because otherwise you have to go through all the validation again, and it takes a couple of weeks. And I know SAM is struggling now because they just, for those of you that have used SAM.gov, they just recently migrated a few months ago from the DUNS number to the UEI number, which is basically just an identifier, but they have some issues they're struggling with. So it's taking a little bit more time to get your account activated in some cases. So give yourself, I'd say, a month.
Here is one from the chat before we go back to the Q&A. What is the typical timeline to receive approval of funding or rejection of an application?
It all depends on the agency, their funding, and how they process grants and awards, how they review the applications. The experience that I had when I worked at HRSA was applications come in, they go to review panels. Every application has to be reviewed, and then they make an award decision based on the feedback that they get from the reviewers. Then they cut the award. So there's all different types of funding. There's no year money, there's calendar year money, there's fiscal year money. The majority, I would say, it's been my experience over the years that the majority of discretionary grant funding that you find on Grants.gov is awarded within a fiscal year. So, each year we have this, let's pass the budget thing, and then sometimes it goes into spring. And a lot of agencies can't even post their opportunities until they have their budgets. So then that shortens that period, that time frame. They're supposed to give you 60 days from the day they post to the deadline day to create a good application and submit it. But in some cases, that doesn't always happen. But for the most part, they usually, again, it depends on legislation, so I don't want to speak for everybody, but they usually are funded within the fiscal year that they're announced.
Okay,
So we're getting into the busy time now.
We have one more question. It states, I've recently re-registered our organization's SAM.gov account and have our UEI ID. My question is related to the Workspace section and application submission. I formally applied to an NEA grant, two-step process, with the first through Grants.gov and the second through their portal. Will different agencies require submission of the grant through Grants.gov? Hope this makes sense. Thank you.
Different agencies do different things. I know NEA, NEH, LMS, and there's one other agency. They have their own system. And I think that they just publish their opportunity with an SF424, which is basically what we call a cover page. They go in through electronic means and they retrieve that form. And then once they get that information, the applicant goes in and completes the application within their own system. There are back-end systems that we refer to them as back-end systems. They're grants management systems where applications are electronically submitted and pulled into the agency will go in and electronically pull all the applications from Grants.gov into their own back-end system. And once the application is submitted in Grants.gov and it's received by the agency, we're done. But there are many agencies out there, as technology has increased and improved, they have their own system for doing things. There are still a lot that are small and that they do things manually, but I would say half of the opportunities are done. The transfer between the Grants.gov system and their agency system is all electronic through what we call a system-to-system interface. And NEH, NEA, they're examples of that.
That's the last question in our Q&A.
Yeah, quickly. My understanding is that at least with some agencies, if not all of these need to be filled out in English. Is that correct?
Yeah, at this time, yes. And it's unfortunate, but lots has happened. And so Grants.gov, we don't have a lot of resources. So to make those changes, we would need resources to do so. So I apologize that we don't have other languages. Our forms aren't developed in other languages. There are some agencies that are way ahead of the game, but we are lagging behind. And that's a very good question.
I will share my screen for our future webinar dates. We're working on a grant series where this is the first of many series. We're working with federal agencies to provide more specific grant webinars. So the next one we have is July 21st. And let me just share this quickly. So we will have our National Endowment for the Arts and National Endowment for the Humanities grant webinar on July 21st, 2022. The SBA and the Orange County Small Business Development Center with the Women's Business Center will be having theirs July 28th at 2 p.m. and August 4th will be the Spanish version at 2 p.m. September 1st, we have the webinar with Health and Human Services at 1 p.m. And September 29th, we have one with the Department of Veteran Affairs, and we're working with plenty other federal agencies to provide more webinars for individuals interested in those. So if there's no more questions, we can end here. And thank you very much for joining us today. It was a good informational webinar. And if you have any questions, I will provide my email address in the chat, so you can go ahead and contact me that way. And that's it for today. Thank you.